Outlining gives your story structure. And structure gives you the little path of breadcrumbs to find your way out of the perilous forest of I don't know what the heck I'm writing. This has happened to me so many times in the past. I have started a book, I had a great idea, I love the characters, I start right in the beginning, and I'm good for maybe a few chapters. If I'm lucky. Then by the middle of it, everyone's doing random stuff, everyone's talking like a bunch of idiots, nobody knows what they're doing, the story goes completely off the rails, and then I discovered outline. So today, I want to help you also understand how outlining can help you, especially if you are a new writer, haven't tried it before. I highly recommend trying this. Some people think that outlining your story before writing it makes it predictable. They think it makes it fall flat. However, just because there's follow through doesn't mean everything has to be done the same way. The events that are going to happen and change your characters aren't going to be the same as the events that happened in this book or this movie. And that is how so many different authors and writers and filmmakers can have the same structure and backbone. Why we can have sci-fi films that follow the same premise that are still vastly different from one another and have vastly different characters. The first thing you want to do is start with your brain dump. Before you even look at the structure, before you think about any beat points or anything, think about your brain dump. This is basically just a document that you have in your writing program on your Google Docs. You can write it by hand, whatever you prefer. Biggest thing is get all of your ideas down. If you have ideas about names, world building, if you know your character's lie or misbelief, which you should have figured out in this series over here, put it in your brain dump and then see where that takes you. Say you want a scene in your book where they're on a cliff. That's all you know. Okay, so then take that idea. They're on a cliff and they fall. Man, that's a little cliche. Okay, they're pushed. Okay, the cliff's up in the air and they have to battle a monster and they end up falling off, and this one learns they can fly, and they find a cavern halfway up the cliff that lets them hide from the monster or whatever it is. And there you go. Now you've just started to figure out a scene. And from there, you can ask yourself, okay, how did they get to this scene? What needed to happen before that? What's going to happen next? Where's it going to lead? Why would they be on the cliff in the first place? Why would they jump? Why would they act the way they're acting? But all of that, all of your whys, dump them on the page. Doesn't have to make sense, doesn't have to be grammatically correct, it doesn't have to be formatted, and literally just get everything on the page. Reason for this is because once you've spit out all your ideas, once you've gotten everything you know about the story, one, this can help you determine if it's a story you should actively write, because sometimes I'll have an idea for a story and there's literally 5 sentences and I don't know where to go from there, which means this story needs to percolate a little longer in my brain, and I'll focus on this one instead. That's one reason to go ahead and have a brain dump. Another thing this helps you with is when you actually start looking at your structured beats, your story beats. You can look at your brain dump, you can look at the scenes you've had, the ideas you have, and you're like, oh, this seems a lot like what this is supposed to do in this section. And you've already outlined that. You can just transplant it right over into your outline structure. And that can save you a lot of time. Another reason that you should do a brain dump, it helps you get out of the idea that your outline is going to be a box that you're putting yourself in. And it's not, okay? The outline is just something to help you figure out your arcs, your development, your story growth, your pacing. Make sure you get everything that you want in your book, and then it's a touchstone. You start writing, you get a little lost, go back to your touchstone, your outline. If you don't know what to write next, go to your outline, and it's there for you. Because I think a lot of people, they think once you've outlined your story, that's it. You have to stick to it, and you don't. You can outline the bejesus out of it. You can have every little minute detail in there. And if you're writing that scene and you're going off your outline and you're something like, I wonder what would happen if I did this instead. Do that instead. See where it goes. But if that idea falls short and you're something like, oh my gosh, I don't know how to get out of this anymore. Well, you have your outline. You can go back to where that started and you can work your way back, see what works, see what didn't. That way you don't have to erase like 50 pages of writing and be like, oh my gosh, now I have this giant hole in my novel and I don't know what to do with it. So that's how I start all of my projects. After I have created my characters and I've really thought about them, I will do my brain dump, I will put all my ideas on the page, and then I will start thinking about what structure I want to use. There is a couple of ways you can do this. In the video after this one, we are going to talk about a specific structure that I've cobbled together from multiple different outlining structures that I've tried in the past. But in this video, I want to talk about the 5 main beats that every structure I've seen has, and then also a structure that can help you layer character arcs and relationships. A lot of people plot stories in 3 acts. Shakespeare did it. The ancient Greek playwrights did it. A lot of authors, a lot of screenwriters do this. The 5 main beats that you really need to focus on. And this is where I would start. And you can add it to your brain dump, or you can make a separate document. You need your introduction. You're going to introduce your main character, what their misbelief is, how it's affecting their life, and what needs to change in their life. Introduce what they think they want, what they think will fix their life. The reader's going to know that's not really what's going to fix their life. First step, and some people call that the opening image, which can be fun to 5th beat, go ahead and flip on its head to mirror and show how far your character's come. After that, the next beat that you want in your story is going to be the inciting incident. It's sometimes called a catalyst, or occasionally the call to adventure. Think in Lord of the Rings when Gandalf brings a bunch of dwarves over to Bilbo's house to go on a quest. That is Bilbo's inciting incident. If he had never had dwarves over for dinner and they'd never put that contract in front of him, he would likely have never left Bag End. That's what pushed him to go on an adventure. Some other examples. In a romance, a lot of the times, the inciting incident is the same as the meet cute. So when the 2 love interests meet for the first time, it's generally the inciting incident. In The Matrix, the movie, the inciting incident would be when Neo meets Morpheus and he's offered the red pill and the blue pill. This is literally a moment of no return. And he could have literally just forgotten everything and gone back to his happy life. But because of everything that led up to that, he made his decision to push forward. Generally, with this inciting incident, there comes a question or a choice that your character needs to make, and it's going to be irreversible. So, for example, with the Matrix example, Neo literally had to choose which pill to take. Was he going to wake up, or was he going to stay in the dream? This is going to be the same for your characters. They could choose to stay where they are, continue living the life they're living, being unhappy and believing what they're believing, or they can accept this call to adventure and they can explore forward. Now, keep in mind, they don't realize that they're going to change. They think they're going after what they want, and for whatever reason, they are choosing to go down this path. Biggest thing about this is you don't want your characters to be passive. You don't want it to be like, oh, well, there was a car explosion and they got kidnapped by these people and so they had to go ahead and fight the war. Because then it's just stuff happening to your character, and that could be anybody. Anybody could have been kidnapped and pushed into the war efforts. What you want is an active character who, while they may have had all those explosions and they may have been kidnapped and they may be being pushed into the war efforts, somehow this needs to be their choice. They can choose to just suck and not try and not work hard, or can choose to realize how it might benefit them to getting what they want for whatever reason. For example, again with the Matrix, it's a pretty obvious one. He could have chosen not to take the pill that would wake him up. And he could have stayed in his life and never become the one. In The Hobbit, Bilbo could have chosen not to go after the dwarves when they left the contract at his house, and they didn't want him to go along, at least Thorin did. He could have chosen to stay in Bag End and never go after them, but instead, he chose to accept that call to adventure and go to help them. And he chased them down, knowing he signed the contract. That was him choosing to go into the adventure. The next beat that is essential for your story is the midpoint. There's generally a twist at the midpoint. Something generally changes, and it's usually unexpected. Say the plot twist moment here in The Matrix is when the Oracle tells Neo that he is not the one. It's a plot twist because throughout the entire beginning of the movie, he's told he's the one that's going to save them and liberate them, and he's been training for it, he's been making strides, he's been great, and then he's suddenly told, no, that's not right, that's wrong. And it's completely subverting what he was expecting and thinking. The next beat that you want to have in your story structure, in this basic 5-point story structure, is the climax. This is going to be when the conflict between the villain of the story and the hero of the story comes to a head. This is going to be the big battle, the big confrontation. It's going to be where everything's out in the open. Your protagonist or a hero has to finally decide, are they going to continue believing that lie that they have been challenging the entire book? Or are they going to accept the truth and realize what has actually been messing up their life and use that newfound truth to defeat the villain and save the day? And no, the villain does not have to be a person. It could be a problem. It could be themselves. A lot of times this can happen. It's their actual literal misbelief that they're tackling, but you can do this in any story. It can be something simple, like here's an example. So stories where someone who say their mother abandoned them when they were younger for reasons good or not. And then she suddenly comes back to town and they have to decide if they're going to forgive her. The villain in that story is going to be their unwillingness to forgive. It can be their mother as a literal villain, but the real villain is going to be the conflict that comes out of that. And that is what they're going to overcome in the climax. And then the next beat that is going to be in this 5-point story structure is going to be the resolution, or sometimes called the epilogue. But not every story needs an epilogue, so resolution is generally what it's called. But it's basically your heroes have saved the day, they've won, they've destroyed Mordor, they've defeated Agent Smith. Now you get to see how far your heroes come, how far your protagonist has come since the beginning. This will be that final image I mentioned that you can have mirror the opening image, the introduction. In the Lord of the Rings movie, the last movie, the resolution is they've destroyed Mordor and Sauron, and Frodo's waking up in Rivendell, his friends around him, they've all survived, and then he goes to the boats to leave. That's your resolution. That is the resolving of the story of the conflict. That's what you meet. Introduction, introduce your characters, whether they're one or two. An exciting incident, what is going to push them out of their comfort zone and make them go on this journey of transformation. The midpoint, what is going to turn this upside down. They thought they had it figured out, and now they have this whole new thing to tackle. It's going to challenge their misbelief. The climax, where they've realized that the problem in their lives is something inherent within themselves. They have misbelieved about the world that they need to go ahead and fix for themselves instead of going after a material want. Climax, they defeat the bad guy, and the resolution, what happens after they defeat the bad guy. The proof that they have actually changed on this journey. The climax is them proving it to themselves and them around them. The resolution, you can think of it as them proving to the readers that they have actually transformed and gone on this journey. One of the aspects that I struggle with a lot, I can outline and brain dump and get like really great plot elements, and usually the main character has a pretty good through line, but then along the way I tend to start dropping subplots and like romantic plot, and it suddenly stops making sense why these two end up together, and this is going to help you not do that. This is going to be similar to what I did on the character sheet that I filled out for you in this video up here, usually just for the two main characters, because at this point I mostly just want to make sure that the two people that are supposed to be romantically interested in each other end up together organically and still have their own arcs to go on that intertwine together until they meet together, and they just help balance each other and complete each other. In a Google Sheet document, I will have my main character and then the love interest character. I will fill out their arcs depending on these beats. And this can vary depending on if you're doing like enemies to lovers, best friends to lovers, doing a slow burn, but there's a couple of really main basic beats. First, you need to introduce your characters, and normally what I will do is I will start with the main point of view character that I'm writing from, and if you want to do a dual point of view, you can do the first chapter from your main character and then the second from the love interest character's point of view, and use those to introduce them. And then in the rows where I'm talking about main character 1 and main character 2, I will write above that beat where they are emotionally. And this is going to be the starting point of that misbelief that we talked about. Whatever they misbelieve about the world, we're going to put in that box. It could be something really brief. For example, for one of my characters, I have he's arrogant, he's strict, he's focused on an immediate goal, and he's not really considering how his actions to get to that goal affect the people around him. And then, this is a really great way, because then you can jump to the end of your arc and you can write in what they're going to become. And you should be able to pull all of this from your character template if you followed along with last week's video. And this will let you fill in the blanks. Some basic story plots, especially for romance. You want the introductions. You need to have the meet cute, is what a lot of people refer to it as, or if you have an enemies to lover arc, the meet hate, and just get that chemistry started from the get-go so that your readers are like, oh, okay, that's who's going to end up together. Now I want to see how they go from this to this. There's going to be some reason that these characters don't think that they should fall in love, or they don't deserve love, or whatever have you, and you're going to want a beat to figure this out for one of the characters, and then later on you're going to have another one for the other character, or just a reiteration for that main point of view character if you're not doing dual point of view. And then they're going to hang out together, they're going to be forced to work together and be around each other, and they're going to start being like, oh, well, this is kind of cool, actually, maybe it's not as bad as I thought it could have been, until the midpoint where they're finally like, oh, okay, I kind of like this person. And maybe they don't want to admit it yet, depending on how drawn out you want the arc to be, but there's definitely more of a connection there. But that would be too easy if halfway through your book everything was fine and dandy, right? This is why in the last video I had you figure out what your character's greatest fear was. Once you've got them together, everything's going good, they're getting along, they're like, oh, well, maybe I do deserve love. It's gonna get torn apart. As writers, we just love torturing our characters. You're gonna ruin everything for their relationship because before they can truly be happy with each other, before they can truly change, well, one, as a relationship, they need to figure out who they are by themselves. They need to change individually before they can make each other whole. This is when in the story there's that big breakup scene that you know isn't going to stick, because then after that, they realize how much they miss the other one. And then you have that grand gesture, like think like rom-coms. You have like the boombox in the air. I think my cat is scratching. Anyway, that moment, and that is just basic for character arcs in romance specifically. And there you have it. That is a very simple outline structure with the main beats that you want to hit, and feel free to fill in around them and work around them if you are more of a discovery writer. If you are new and want to try your hand at called being a plotter, stay tuned for the next video where I am going to break down the structure that I have put together and cobbled together from the different story structures I've tried in the past and see if it works for you. Try several different structures. They all basically have the same beats. So like these 5 beats I've mentioned, all of them touch on that generally. But the important thing is sometimes having the surrounding beats, the extra beats, or having someone explain it in a different way can make it click in your brain. Let me know if this helped you, if you guys are writing books right now, if there's anything you are struggling with in your stories, I want to hear about it. Let me know if there's anything I can do to help you figure it out. Yeah, till next time.